Welcome to today's Explainer. You know, when we look at a brand new, beautifully finished residential community, it's incredibly easy to just focus on the final product, right? The pristine landscaping, the fresh paint, the gorgeous architectural design. But today, we're going to look right past that curb appeal. We're going to explore the hidden and honestly often visceral realities of home construction, specifically through the lens of the SASB Sustainability Accounting Standard for home builders. We're talking about the true human cost of building, zooming in on workforce health and safety. It's this absolutely fascinating intersection of human well-being, corporate risk, and financial stability. Let's get into it.
Here's our quick roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover the reality of construction, the cost of workplace hazards, how we measure safety performance, and finally, building a safety culture.
Okay, let's dive into this. Part 1, the reality of construction.
So I want to pose a thought-provoking question to you. What is the true cost of building a home? Usually, when investors or even homebuyers think about cost, our minds immediately go straight to raw materials, don't they? We think about the price of lumber, concrete, copper wiring, or just the cost of acquiring the land itself. But the SASB standards force us to shift our focus entirely. They require us to look really closely at the human and operational risks that are literally baked into the very foundation of the home building industry.
As our source material explicitly highlights, home construction demands a massive amount of intense manual labor. And remember, this isn't happening in some climate-controlled factory environment. From the very first steps of site excavation all the way to the final stages of home building, the activities are remarkably physically demanding. Workers are constantly exposed to extreme risks. We're talking about operating and maneuvering around massive, heavy machinery and working at significant heights, which, brings that ever-present danger of fatal falls. Because of this dynamic environment, the home building industry faces relatively high injury and fatality rates compared to a lot of other sectors. It's a ground-level reality that simply cannot be ignored in any kind of sustainability or financial assessment.
Moving right along to Part 2, the cost of workplace hazards. Here is the harsh, real-world cause and effect chain of these workplace hazards. Step 1 is the immediate incident itself, a worker injury or, tragically, a fatality. But the impact doesn't just stop there. Step 2 highlights the immediate operational bottlenecks. An on-site accident causes significant project delays and forced downtime, completely throwing those complex construction schedules into chaos. And finally, in Step 3, we see the severe financial penalties hitting the ledger. The builder suddenly faces increased workers' compensation costs, painful regulatory fines, the heavy burden of more stringent regulatory oversight, and sharply higher insurance premiums going forward. So a single failure in safety actually cascades through the entire financial structure of a project.
So the crucial point here is this concept of this social license to operate. When a builder has high injury rates, they don't just lose money. They risk losing the ongoing acceptance and approval of their employees, their stakeholders, and the local public. According to the SASB standard, the internal and external costs of worker injuries and fatalities can significantly affect an entity's operations to the point where they completely lose this social license. Think about it. If a community believes a builder operates recklessly, securing future zoning approvals, community support, or local permits, that becomes nearly impossible. Basically, you lose your reputation, you lose your absolute right to build.
Which brings us to Part 3, measuring safety performance. Now, what's really fascinating about this is seeing exactly how these human elements are translated into standardized corporate data. Looking at the SASB Sustainability Disclosure Topics and Metrics table we have here, right in the middle, you can see the category for workforce health and safety. It uses specific metric codes, like IFB 328.1, to give investors a truly objective, quantifiable way to evaluate a company's safety performance across the board. It essentially takes the emotional and physical reality of the job site and translates it into a standardized language that the financial world can actually understand and act upon. Let's take a second to de-jargonize one of those key metrics, TIIR, or the Total Recordable Incident Rate. Now, the SASB standard is very specific about what actually counts here. A recordable incident isn't just a scraped knee that needs a quick bandage. First aid absolutely does not count. We are talking about serious work-related injuries or illnesses resulting from exposures in the work environment. It includes incidents resulting in death, days away from work, restricted work or having to transfer to another job, loss of consciousness, or any significant injury diagnosed by a physician that requires medical treatment way beyond basic first aid. By strictly defining this, the standard ensures that builders just can't hide serious safety lapses.
And this brilliantly illustrates a really vital layer of accountability in the SASB standard. When tracking safety, a home builder cannot just report on their own direct payroll employees.
They actually have to separately disclose the incident and fatality rates for both direct employees and contract employees. Why does this matter so much? Well, because home construction relies heavily on subcontractors. Independent contractors, temp agencies, labor brokers, all of whom the builder manages or supervises on site. If a builder was only required to report on their direct employees, a massive portion of the job site's actual risk would just be hidden from view. This dual reporting requirement ensures total transparency.
Now you might be wondering, how do we fairly compare a massive national home builder to a much smaller regional developer? The answer is this baseline number right here, 200,000. In the SASB formula for calculating the TIIR and fatality rates, they multiply the incident count by 200,000 and then divide it by the total hours worked by all employees. So what is that number? It specifically represents the total number of hours that 100 full-time workers would provide annually, assuming they work 40 hours a week for 50 weeks a year. It's essentially a mathematical equalizer, perfectly standardizing the data so an investor can accurately compare safety performance across companies of vastly different sizes.
All right, let's move to our final section, Part 4, Building a Safety Culture.
The SASB standard actually lays out some really concrete steps that entities must take to foster a true culture of safety. It's not just about reacting to accidents. It is all about anticipating them. This means implementing proactive safety management plans long before the first shovel even hits the dirt. It means rigorous, ongoing employee and contractor training so that every single person on site, regardless of who writes their paycheck, fully understands the protocols for heavy machinery and fall hazards. And it requires regular, uncompromising safety audits. Guys, these aren't just bureaucratic checkboxes. These are empowering practices that help builders avoid crippling downtime, save immense amounts of money, and most importantly, maintain their social license to operate by making sure their workers go home safely every single day.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to consider. How do safety practices shape the communities being built around us? When we look at corporate sustainability metrics and complex standard codes, it's honestly so easy to lose sight of the big picture. But those numbers represent real human lives, the financial stability of the companies building our towns, and that foundational trust between a developer and the public. A safely built neighborhood isn't just about the strength of the concrete, it's about the integrity of the process that created it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this gives you a completely new perspective the very next time you drive past a construction site.